In 3, 2, and 1. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, welcome to This Is a Revolution, your weekly RevPro podcast. Myself, George, along with my good friends Spike and Dave. Gentlemen, how are we doing this evening?
All right, mate. Really enjoying your hat.
So we're recording this at dickhead o'clock, it seems. But before I hit record, I just told these gents that I was going to hit record while they're in the middle of laughing, because Dave has really just showed his ass with ignorance on teams when his point of reference for the Chicago Bulls, one of the greatest sports dynasties in the history of any sport, really. He knows because of Space Jam. And then he had the temerity to say that my hat looks like a banana peeling, which I'll never be able to unsee. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Dave.
Oh. You know the Greedy Souls T-shirt where Brendan and Danny are standing with the wall behind their backs, and they're in their gear. Like, I love that T-shirt, and I bought it, and I took it home, and I put it on to show my wife. And she just stared at it and she said, "You can see their penises." And I've never been able to look at it the same way since.
That's the first clip for the week.
Yeah. And this is why Spike bought 2 of them, right? Oh, dear.
Yeah,
what a professional podcast we are.
Anyone watching, please comment below on things that you have been told look like random things. I just thought, I just thought it was a great time to hit record because you boys were just laughing. The people will be like, "What is going on there? What is happening in this place?" We've just got off our soapbox of literally half an hour talking about what we're not enjoying about AEW, and now we're ready, boys. We're ready to actually talk about things that we want to talk about and are looking forward to. It's not all doom and gloom on this podcast. We've got a couple of events coming up over the next few weeks, haven't we? We've had a couple of weeks off. Next week we've got the J Cup, which I don't know about you boys, felt like it snuck up on me. Like all of the notifications were coming out of participants and entrants. Like, yeah, great, okay. And it feels like it's been built up nicely, but snuck up at the same time. And we're also Global Wars coming up in, I think it's like 5 or 6 weeks. It's got to be something like that, maybe a little bit longer potentially. But it was like this middle of.
It's like 4 weeks. When the podcast will come out on Friday, and it's 4 weeks the following day.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So even that's come around really quickly.
That is quick. Yeah. Drives to Stevenage
and sure, with the J Cup, like we've had 7 names announced for it, which have been nicely like peppered in. But there's still so much to be announced. Like we don't know the bracket. We don't know who's facing who in the first round. We don't know what the rest of the card's going to look like. Then there's a whole Sheffield card for the next day, which we've got 1 match for, but you'd expect 6 or 7 more.
Mm-hmm.
Loads of big announcements to be had over the next sort of like 10 days or so.
Absolutely. And you've also got to think that some of the names that we've seen announced for Sheffield that haven't necessarily been announced just yet for for J Cup night. They've got to cross over in some way as well. So going to be interesting.
I'd expect that you're going to see everybody who's on the J Cup card in terms of imports. I'd expect to see in Sheffield as well.
Same, absolutely. Well, lads,
that's actually a really good point. Mike DeVecchio is confirmed for Sheffield, but not the J Cup.
And I'm trying to manifest Mike DeVecchio.
See him in one of the non-cruiserweight matches at the J Cup. I hadn't thought about that until literally then.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one as well because he's been announced for that. They're obviously running back him versus RKJ. I think that's what I saw. I did, didn't I?
Yeah, 2 out of 3 falls, yeah.
So you've got to think that if he does appear at the J Cup, that he's got to get a win going into that, which then rules out one of the matches that I think he could be in, potentially. And I'm saying that he could be in. He might not even appear, but it'd just be very unlikely that he wouldn't appear. So.
Yeah, I think it's one, like, if he's flying in from Europe, he could get a flight Sunday morning and get a flight home Sunday night.
Yeah.
I just hope Santos that doesn't happen. And Zozaya do it, like, all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas like Robbie Eagles flying in presumably from Japan. unless he's flown from Japan to somewhere else for a show prior. Barbro's obviously based in Mexico. Leo Rush is based in America. You'd expect these longer flight guys, they're all coming over and staying for the weekend. So, yeah, I think like Sheffield, I always think Sheffield is a really, really underrated card. And it's one where I'm surprised more people don't make the journey for it. Although I must say that I know a lot of like fans that I see are even further south than I am, so and it's quite a long journey for me. So for them, it's an even bigger journey. And there's a good crowd of people already at the network every time. But it would be lovely for them to grow that over the next sort of like 6 to 12 months. And cards like putting on Mike DeVecchio versus RKJ in the main event, presumably, and announcing that so far in advance can only do good business.
Absolutely. It's one that I've looked at a couple of times myself, but I think it's like a 5 and a bit hour drive each way. So no matter how good the car's looking, I think even if you were to get Osprey over, I don't think I'm going to be doing a 5.5 hour drive each way for that, no matter how good the rest.
And then work the next day, like that is a commitment. And
don't, mate. I'm at the stage where I feel like I said to you guys yesterday on the old WhatsApp that looking at a film at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because I can get home in time to have dinner in the evening. Proper old person shit, but that's where I'm getting to now. So yeah, the idea of going to work the next day after that is just a killer. So yeah, I'll leave that one to the northern fans. But gents, today I'm gonna go through at the beginning, the top of the show, what our rundown is gonna be. So if people are watching, they can skip ahead for the bits they want to listen to. I mean, I'd like to think that everyone's watching, listening to everything, right? With our handsome faces, our wonderful insight, they should be watching everything. But if you are someone that is a little bit strapped for time, and it's a busy old world out there, we're going to run through the J Cup, and we're going to go through who we all think the final participant to be announced is going to be. We're going to give you our thoughts on who's going to win. We're going to pick something, and we're going to say one thing that we expect to see happen during the night. And it could be anything. But we're going to do that. And actually, caveat there, I'm not going to stand for we will see a tournament or someone will win the J Cup. Those answers will be vetoed. But knowing you boys, I don't think I'll hear anything like that. And then we're going to take a look ahead at Global Wars. And we're not going to get too super involved in that just yet. But I know we're talking before off air that between now and after next week, there's like a show every week. So we're not going to have that chance necessarily to do a Global Wars dedicated spot. So now might be a time of just getting a bit of speculation out there and think, what is a match that could be announced for someone who's already on the card? And for people that haven't been announced, what do we think one of the matches could be? So, Spike, I'm going to chuck it over to you first of all, my friend. Who do you think the final participant in the J Cup is going to be?
Well, I wanted to be Leon Cage. I'm desperate for him to get a showing. I think it makes sense. The problem is it's the last announcement, so I don't know if it will be him or if it will be a billion known. But I wanted to be Leon Cage. I think he, over the last 6 months, has proved that he's earned a spot. And like him just being at Southampton to help out, that shows that he's making his moves, he's making his connections. And you both know I'm a massive fan of his and of New Wave, and I would love to see Bill Welsh love shown in the J Cup. I don't expect him to go further than the first round, but I would love him to get that showcase and everyone to finally go, he's here. Let's see some more of him.
I think it could be a good shout for the final announcement. You could suggest that the final announcement's got to be someone big, right? Like a big name. Yeah. But it doesn't have to be because it's such a loaded tournament. And Leon Cage is also someone that's got a lot of buzz. Like, he's not a big name, but he's a big prospect. And he's a big enough prospect that people could go, this would be a great opportunity to go see him. I think Dave mentioned it last week, I think, about being like a tournament. So you can kind of like play that off in a different way as well. It's quite an exciting addition to the tournament kind of set up there. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a huge name that's going to be announced, but equally, it could be. Dave, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd thought of Leon Cage, and we'd talked about him before. I think he'd be a really good addition. But like Spike considered, actually, I'd considered the fact that for the 8th spot, they might want somewhat, especially because there's been quite a long gap between the 7th announcement and the 8th announcement, that they might go for someone that is, I don't want to say got a bit more of a like wow factor, because that's not fair at all on Leon Cage, but maybe got a little bit more of like a name value to them.
Yeah.
Which again I find fascinating, because I think Leon Cage is really quite well known now amongst like British wrestling fans. So he would, like, a lot of people who are like Rev Pro regulars would see that and be really pleased to see that. All the fans of, you know, the Welsh wrestling scene would see it and be really pleased to see it. I wonder if they hadn't already announced Robbie Eagles, like, I would have expected the last name to be a big name, but the fact that they just threw Robbie Eagles out there, like, that's massive for me. Like, I've wanted to see Robbie Eagles in Rev Pro ever since I've been going. He's not been there for 5 years. He didn't do either of the Royal Quest shows since the pandemic. So it's like, you know, he is kind of someone who we've been a little bit deprived of. And like, I can't wait to see him. He's one of my favourite people in New Japan. So it makes me think that the 8th name will, you know, I'm not expecting like a massive game changer. You know, someone who's there to draw tons and tons of tickets. I think it's going to be someone that's just going to make for a really interesting J-Cup. I'm going to go for Igor Blong, partly because I really want it. And secondly, I kind of feel like he toes the line nicely between someone that will get fans really excited and someone that isn't a big expensive import. You know, like a flight over from France to London is far cheaper than a transatlantic flight. So I think that would be amazing. I think we'd then have a really, really nice balance between 4 kind of Brit Rest stalwarts in Cameron Kai, Robbie X, and the Lycos boys, and then 4 kind of like imported talents for it, which ties in really nicely with like the history of the J Cup. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if it was the only sort of person I'm now would be surprised it would be like a Leon Slater, because it kind of feels like Leon. If Leon was going to be in it, I would have thought they would have announced him earlier on. And I'm now just thinking that I'm not sure. I've heard that there might be like TNA tapings J Cup weekend, so he might have been unavailable from the very beginning. I wouldn't expect now for it to be like a Danny Black or a Joe Lando, which we'd speculated last week on could be involved. So I think it's going to be someone who's got an element of surprise to them, but not a really expensive import. And therefore, I think Igor Blong fits that really well. I also do think Spike's right that Leon Cage fits it really well as well.
Yeah, I like both of those suggestions. And if I'm honest, Dave, that was what my suggestion was as well, Igor Blanc. But I had an idea that you're probably going to go with that one as well. I think you mentioned it last week. It just felt like it fit. So I was kind of thinking today.
I fell in love with the guy when he wrestled Robbie X in Southampton.
It was amazing, right?
I was just absolutely amazed by it. And all I could think of when that match finished were all the other wrestlers I'd love to see him wrestle.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just something just that so amazing about what he does, and he's one of those guys you kind of look at, and he doesn't have like the traditional wrestler frame, right? Like he's normally you get like the really short guys who are skinny high flyers. You get the taller guys who are a bit more built, and he's got like he just stands out in a really different way because he doesn't have a lot of build to him, but still manages to look so broad and have like this chisel. He reminds me a little bit of what's his name? Is it Cara Noir from Progress?
Very much so.
It reminds me of that kind of build and kind of physique. And he's just there's no one like Igor Blanc. So I'd be massively a fan of Igor Blanc. So I was having to think.
I've always thought that he looks like I don't know what he does outside of wrestling or what his background is, but he looks like someone who has like experienced like dancing or like
that's what I was thinking.
Sort of like theatre. Like he's got a really his body fat must be ridiculously low, because he's such like a slim guy, but he is like jacked as well in terms of like big broad shoulders, like you say, and it makes him a great wrestler for that style, because he's strong enough to be like a really good base, but also like agile enough to be able to do things that you just wouldn't expect people to be able to do.
Absolutely, such low body fat and a wonderful head of hair. Those are the only two things that separate Igor Blanc and I. So thinking about what we could go with, so I was having to think, and I thought Igor Blanc would be my pick. Leon Slater at this point, to me, I don't want to sound negative or anything, but I just feel like this is like Leon's outgrown this. Like I just don't. I think when I say this, it's meant in the nicest ways. I don't think Leon really benefits from this tournament. Like we benefit from great matches, of course, right? Which when you go, you want to see great matches. I'm never gonna like make the mistake I maybe did at times with Ospreay and take Leon for granted. Like the guy is amazing, and any chance to see him is wonderful. But in Rev Pro, I want to see something that's got a bit more stakes to it, a bit more meat on the bone. And to me, J Cup just isn't that for him. Like this is going to be about doing something different and giving some other guys like Cameron Kai's a bit more of a spotlight, which I think is really good. So I didn't really pick Leon for it. I was stuck between two names, so I'm going to go with two very quickly. One who's appeared in Rev Pro a bit more and was recent-ish a champion in Jordan Breaks. I think he'd be a really great addition to the tournament, a really different style, which, as we say, styles make matches, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could put him in there with Lycos too, even Lycos, like completely different styles and what they do there. Stick him in there with Leo Rush. Like they're all going to mix up in a different way. And then the other name that I kind of thought of, who's been in Rev Pro once, I believe, who I'd love to see get another shot, is Scotty Rock. I think the guy was really good. And I've actually seen him and Leo Rush wrestle each other before, and they had great chemistry. So that was kind of also another thought behind that, was that could make for really interesting things. And he's just got such a different personality and look and feel about him. I think could just be really interesting in the cruiserweight division. And you know what? If he does well, could he be someone that you share some kind of alignment with someone like Will Caven? Because he's got that dirty, grungy feeling to him as well. So, yeah,
this J-Cup is it's very face heavy, isn't it?
It is.
And I know that so many of these, like all of these wrestlers, are brilliant at working both ways, and they can all do it like situationally. Like if Robbie Eagles is wrestling Cameron Kai, Robbie Eagles could definitely work the heel side of it without like blowing the fact that he's a face in New Japan. Like he can just lean into the nastiness a bit more. When Leo Rush wrestled Leon Slater in the J-Cup 2 years ago, he didn't wrestle like a heel, but he definitely let Leon wrestle the face. He just kind of was sort of like the antagonistic kind of like veteran in comparison to a very like what would have been an 18-year-old Leon Slater at the time. It would be quite nice to see like a proper out and out nasty like dirty heel, and Scotty Rourke would be really good for that. I saw him, so he wrestled in St. Neots earlier this year against Robbie X, and he did a Revolution tag at the really bizarre Portsmouth show that happened last year. Do you remember? It was the show where very little was announced until quite towards the last minute. It was November 26th because it was my wife's birthday, which was the only reason I didn't go.
I'm pretty sure on that one, that was because I was at that show. I'm pretty sure that was the one where he was against Robbie X, unless he's done another one.
So that one was I think it was a Revolution tag. If it wasn't, it was an 8-man tag. But it had Levi Muir, it had Kelly Six, it had Jordan Said before he joined the Contenders. It was just sort of like a bit of a mismatch of Gideon wrestled it. It was like a mismatch of people. It felt a little bit like plans hadn't quite come together, and it was, let's throw some people in together and make a fun match out of it.
Well, the show actually moved, didn't it? It got moved back quite a month. So
yeah, that if it just felt like everything around that time made that show feel a little bit cursed. Even on the night, I remember there was some sound issues and like just production issues, which just don't normally happen at a Rev Pro show. And he was doing commentary all by himself. It just one of those ones where it's just like it was a bit of a bizarre show, but it's kind of infamous for me, like looking back, because it was just random and chaotic can be quite fun on it. So I really quite enjoyed it as from a like, okay, this is a not a typical Rev Pro show. Let's see a load of people we've not seen before and see who stands out. I remember Levi looking like an absolute boss, and there being some really funny stuff with Gideon and him in there. I think Gideon eliminated himself when he realised that he was going to have to wrestle Levi. Just threw himself over the top rope. Like stupid, funny shit.
Yeah, there was quite a show, and I remember there's a lot I remember from that show actually in a positive way, even though, like you said, it was like kind of a cursed show. So yeah, Robbie X versus Scotty Rourke was the opener in that show, and then it also
Scotty wasn't in the. Who was in the 8-man then?
It was Gideon, Jordan Said, Levi Muir, and Will Caven versus Cameron Kai, Harry Milligan, Kelly Six, and Samuel Hawkes.
Oh, Samuel Hawkes was in it. Someone who's just like dropped off the face of the earth when it comes to Rev Pro.
Yeah. And then it also had a really great match between Sapphire Reed and Maya Matthews. So I think that was the first time I ever saw Sapphire Reed. I thought she's good. Had Alex Windsor versus Maya Matthews, Trent versus Shah. And this was the one that really got me round on them. Billington Bulldogs versus True and Lacey, which was a really great match. And the main event was Mitch Waterman versus Michael Oku, which I thought was really great. I thought Mitch Waterman was going to do some really good things in Rev Pro. And but what really kind of that night kind of typified it was so quiet. And we've spoke about this. I mean, first of all, I find it really funny that I think Spike was in there on that same night potentially, and I was in there and we didn't even know each other. But secondly, I remember it was so quiet that from my seat shouted, "Come on, Mitch." And he was like, well, at least one person is shouting. And it was just like, it was so awkward. It was just like, okay.
Don't acknowledge that. Don't acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Because now you're going to stop it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, yeah, cheers, Mitch. Going to stop there. But it's actually one of those ones that on the night, it just felt like a really awkward show. But actually looking back at it, it's like, no, it wasn't a bad show, that one, all things considered.
Like I say, sometimes just a little bit different and a little bit chaotic can be quite fun, can't it?
Absolutely. And some names there that were new to me at the time as well, like Sapphire, Scotty I knew but didn't know a lot of, Mitch Waterman. Yeah, it all worked out nicely. But back to the matter at hand, Dave, you've segued quite nicely into when we were talking about the face and the heel dynamic. But who do you think is going to win the tournament?
So I think my claim for who's going to win it is probably one that people aren't expecting. I think Leo Rush is going to win it. And I think that, I think he's going to win it. I just think it makes a lot of sense for him to win it. And I think it would be a really bold booking choice because Leo's got a lot of Rev Pro history. So it's not like it's someone who they've just plucked out of thin air. It's not like, no disrespect intended, but it's not like they booked Dante Martin and Dante Martin, like he turned up at the Cruiserweight Scramble match and won the Cruiserweight title and that was that. Like, for Leo to get this, like he's put in the hard yards with Rev Pro, like on and off, like over the last few years. But also, like the J Cup was like built on big import winners, like Jushin Thunder Liger, Speedball Mike Bailey, like ELP, like these are like big name winners of the J Cup. We've then had a couple of years post pandemic wherein it's been like Rev Pro kind of consistent guys in Leon and Robbie. But I feel like it would do the prestige of the cup some good to give it to somebody with a worldwide name value again. I don't think anyone in the tournament has a bigger like name kind of record, like the name value than Leo. I think that he's hotter at the moment than he probably ever has been in terms of, he's now firmly in AEW, part of AEW storylines, still does his work with New Japan. Like, apart from when he was with Bobby Lashley, as like the manager role, when he was probably most well known around the world, this is the point where he's probably doing his best work in ring consistently across multiple promotions. And I feel like it would be a great one for him to win and then lose to Will Caven.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. And so much so that Lio Rush was also going to be my pick. But again, I think, I don't know if we've had conversations or not, but I thought Dave's probably got this one on his list as well. So first of all, I would love Leo to win. It's a bit of a running joke between me and my wife that Lio Rush and I are tag team partners. I've met the guy twice, and every time we pose for a picture, it just looks like a tag team posing for a picture together. So that's a little joke that we have. Lio Rush is my tag team partner. I'd love to see him win. I just love the guy. I think he's genuinely a really nice, humble, down to earth guy. He's been through a lot of struggles with mental health, right? I defend the guy. I've never met him like on a personal level other than meet and greet, but I think everything he's gone through, and kind of people like to make the joke about retirements. He's come out and he's spoken about and talked about mental health, about how that's been why he's done it and bringing up his family. And it just makes him even that much more relatable with all of that going on. So I'd love to see something like that for him. But if not for him, my pick would be Barbaro. I think a lot of what you've just said there, Dave, resonates.
Really?
What I think, the reason I've kind of gone with him, if not Leo, is a lot of similar things like you've just said there, right? You've got the whole prestige you're putting on someone international, okay? And a lot of these talents that have been international that have won it are people, like the majority have been more New Japan leaning, right? CMLL seems like the hot new partner on the block right now. New Japan has lost a bit of that sheen that maybe they had 5 years or so ago, right? AEW coming into the marketplace has meant that plus COVID and New Japan probably not preparing for the next set of headliners to come in has probably taken them back a little bit, and they need to work themselves to get back to kind of that former glory a bit. And CMLL coming in there now, and it's like, look at this shiny new toy of CMLL, and there's a lot of guys going out to Mexico. Michael Oku obviously going out there. Zack Sabre Jr.'s been out there. Robbie X has been out there. But also AEW is sending people out there as well. So that seems like the hot little thing at the moment. Could we see someone from there win it? And that's, again, like you just said there, you then feed them to Will Caven. Do you then try and do something in the match where, because you've got to assume that if they're bringing in like 3 to 4 imports, at least 2 of the imports are making the final, right? So do you have a scenario where Leo gets taken out because Will Caven is making a beeline for, say, Cameron Kai? Cameron dives out of the way and Leo's there. And then you've got a scenario where you're setting up another match where you can have 2 imports over time go up against Will Caven, and you have them lose to Will Caven as well. And that's how you really start to get his stock rising, by putting these big names against him. You're still bubbling the Cameron story away there. But a name like Barbara would be someone that I think is unexpected across people. Like, they look at the name value, they go, this is a really good get for Rev Pro to have in a tournament like this. But probably we go, that's the one I'd say is least likely to win out of the imports. And that's just why I just want to play things up a little bit. How about you, Spike? What's your thoughts?
I agree with everything you've both said, but I have a feeling Kid Lycos is going to win it.
You boys are like proper surprising me. I didn't think either of those names would come.
So to me, Kid Lycos, like, his progress run was incredible. He's just a new character without the mask. And I just have it like, why bring him back for the J Cup? Is one of my things, and I just think you could do so much of it. Like, you have to do, in my opinion, Lycos versus Lycos 2 in the first round. That's where you build up the welcome back Lycos. That match will be incredible, and then you can build him up to be, this guy. This is our guy. He then wins the tournament, but then you can spin off into Lycos versus Lycos 2 for a bit. And like we've seen against Spike Gervais, like the blood down his face, and how he's the sympathetic babyface that you can get behind him. Mm-hmm. He's a perfect foil for Will Caven, because Will Caven beats the absolute shit out of him. You're gonna hate the fuck out of Will Caven. So to me, Lycos fits that role perfectly. Like, I
Interesting.
just like he's a polar opposite to Rookhaven. Like, Rookhaven looks gritty. He's got the hair. He looks like a swat. Whereas Lycos is like very handsome, got the blonde hair, got everything about him. So I think they're the perfect little stories go against each other. And I obviously agree. Feed him to Caven. Absolutely feed him to Caven and have Caven go on a fucking stellar run. But I just think Lycos will be a really good pick for it.
I think that's really
Still has
interesting.
really good suggestions there. And do you know what? You've really made me realise how there's a really good argument for any one of the 7 people in it. Like, I think maybe Lycos 2 would be the hardest one to put like a case forward for. But then that kind of is his case. The fact that he is the biggest underdog in the whole tournament. He'll be the one that everybody writes off, which then is like his own story all of its own. Cameron's like the one where you would say he's probably like, in terms of if it's just about progressing storylines, the favourite, because in terms of what would be most logical, if this was purely we want to build an opponent for Caven, you'd do Cameron, especially after like Caven's been giving it the big one, saying Cameron's never getting, like, he's right at the back of the line, he's one and done, he's not got another shot against me. And then you've also got the fact that nobody's ever won it twice, and Robbie X is the king of the cruiserweights. So if anyone's going to win it twice, it would be him.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Robbie Eagles fits in perfectly with the Leo Rush and the Barbaro case for putting it on a big name import. It's proper fascinating.
Yeah. What's really funny as well is when you said Lycos, I kind of laughed to myself because I was going to say, if you went with a British talent, Lycos 2 was actually going to be one that I would have suggested, because he feels, as a singles guy, would feel really fresh. And this is also interesting looking at it from this way, because I know, Dave, you won't see it from the same way I'm looking at it necessarily here, because I know that you are so entrenched at RevPro, whereas I've been testing the waters with Progress and sometimes the wider wrestling world a little bit more. And Lycos has become one of those guys that I felt really had become firmly entrenched as a Progress guy, like Kid Lycos, not Lycos 2. So to me, that one almost feels like a really weird booking, almost, and not in a bad way, just in a different way, because he has been the focus and has been their guy. And I know Luke is their guy as well, but not in the way that I saw Lycos being their guy. So it just feels really weird in a Rev Pro setting. So I like that because it adds something a bit different, because I don't think we've had Lycos in Rev Pro. I could be wrong. Since he's had to unmask. I don't know.
He did the Tag League unmasked.
Did he? Okay. So it's long ago
than
I thought.
If I remember correctly, I think he did the first match of the Tag League with his mask, then lost the mask and did the next matches without it.
Okay.
And it's also like worth thinking about. Obviously, it wasn't ever meant to be the case, but that Tag League ended with both Lycos boys losing to Anthony Ogogo in a handicap match, which only came about because RKJ's missus went into labour, and so he went to be with her at the hospital. So it was one of those ones where it was like, this wasn't the plan. You were going to get a tag team match, but it's really good news. RKJ's about to be a daddy again.
Yeah.
Everybody cheered in the 229. It was like this really like nice wholesome moment. And then the realization is like, oh shit, the Lycos boys are going to get fed to Ogogo, aren't they? Because Ogogo and RKJ had to win the match for their storyline to go to Uprising, which by that point it was fairly clear that had to happen.
Yeah,
absolutely. So it'd be good for both of the lads to get like a really good showing in the J Cup.
Absolutely.
I always talk about, I haven't talked about it for a long time, but I always used to talk about the Kid Lycos 2 versus Francesco Akira match from Birmingham last year, which was one of the first times I'd watched Lycos 2 have a serious singles match. I think my only singles matches with him before that were like 2022 when he was wrestling TK Cooper or Chuck Mambo when Sunshine Machine and Kid Lycos were feuding, and it was very much like Sunshine Machine being like the honourable face tag team versus the conniving little shitwolves, and it was how much kind of shithousery could they fit into a match, and it was like silly and fun. But the Akira versus Kid Lycos 2 match was in that fourth spot before the interval. It was given like 15, 16 minutes, and it just was. It made Akira look like an absolute beast, and Lycos 2 was so kind of like, you felt for him so much. You were absolutely like wanting him to get the victory. It was really impressive, and it just showed like how much the lad's got.
He really does, and like he's 22 years old, so he's got so much on him. One of the favorite, most like random matches I've seen of his. It was one I actually watched. I wasn't there live for it progress, but it was one that I watched on stream, and it was against El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. 10 minutes, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with his opponent, but he's one of those luchadors that's not like a small skinny luchador. He's like a big built guy, and I don't know what it is, but there's something about luchadors who are not the norm, like not the small skinny guys, not your Rey Mysterios, your high flyers, but these big bruising guys with all of that pomp and circumstance around it, and it just made for a really great match. And I also love that Lycos 2's got this Rey Mysterio Halloween Havoc style costume as well. It just really adds to it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing all of those guys in the tournament. But speaking about the tournament and stuff that we think is going to happen during the night, so I've kind of used one up already, which I just kind of let slide. I think it's fairly obvious that we'll probably see Will Caven will be playing a part. All right, I don't think it's any coincidence that Will mentioned on when Dave the Mark meets Will Caven, available on DaveTheMark.com, that he said that he won't be taking part in the tournament. And I think that is because he is going to play spoiler on the night. But that is not what I think is going to happen. What I'm using in mind, what other things we think is going to happen. I think we're going to get RKJ versus Michael Oku at J Cup. I think it's going to drop. It's felt a really weird one in the sense that it's kind of been brought up at that 229 show and there's nothing between, right? So you almost feel like, well, it needs some more build. But does it? Because that was just good enough by itself, right? That promo. We all remember what RKJ said to Amira. We feel that off of it. And what's really great about wrestling sometimes when you talk about long-term booking, there's kind of two ways of looking at long-term booking, right? There's the meticulous that we know Andy has probably got his little notepad and is tracking along and putting different breadcrumbs out, different timelines in case different things happen. But there's also the type of long-term booking that because you book so well, it allows you to keep these stories going into the future. And all you need to do is feed little bits of that story at different parts at the right times. And then you get the outcome that you want. And look, we don't know if this was the planned destination or whether injuries forced this into existence. But that promo was just incredible. And I think let's just go with it now. Strike while the iron's hot. You've got an opportunity where you've got a tournament, a one-night tournament. You're likely going to have Luke Jacobs defend the title as well. And you've got the opportunity to have such a big match. It doesn't even have to be a title match. It just feels win-win to me. How about you, Spike? What's your thoughts? What do you think might happen on the evening?
I think that match will happen, but I think the Oku heel turn will finally happen.
Nice.
I just think that it's the premiere of the season. Yep. It's the first episode. Why not strike and have Oku turn heel for the rest? And then you set the message for the rest of the year. Oku's now a heel. He's now gonna. I don't know if that would mean you turn RKJ full on babyface or you have Oku do something later on. But I think that's the perfect time to do it. Let's start the fresh year with an Oku heel turn. It's coming. We all know it's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could very easily, like you said, just switch RKJ so that he's a babyface because he's one of those guys. He's almost like a Randy Orton, isn't he? That you don't have to do too much to his personality kind of switch him between the two. Don't worry. Was that pie or was that mash?
That was Mash.
That was
Mash has the white face. Pie has the dark face. I could hear them scratching at their scratching post behind me, and I was like, "That's going to sound awful on the pod." I'll move them. And,
I didn't hear it. I did not hear it, to be fair, but I can't remember. Was Pie the one that we said was going to be into all kinds of like piss and vinegar wrestling? And I want to say we, I mean me. So it's no surprise.
You know what their favourite thing to do in the evenings is to scrap. And the kids literally like run around being like, they're wrestling, come and watch them wrestle. It's great fun.
Oh, I love it. Excellent.
It's interesting. So, Spike, do you think it'll be Oku and RKJ at the J Cup?
Yeah, I think that's be the match, but I think Oku will turn. Whether it's after the match, I reckon he might lose. I reckon it'll be like a breaking point for Oku. They'll kick him in the dick or whatever. Or a mirror.
Yeah, I think when Oku and RKJ happens, RKJ wins, and it's part of Oku's kind of descent into madness. Mm-hmm. I'm just not sure if they'll do it at the J Cup or not, but I agree. I don't think there's any reason not to, because like there's literally there's a video package ready to be clicked play there. If you put all the little snippets that they've had together. Oku had a mirror around the throat, I think, in February in the 229. And then Oku and RKJ had a face-to-face in Coventry this year. If you go back to stuff from last year and the year before, there were lots of times when Oku and RKJ were in the same vicinity and there being tension there. So I don't feel like there is a need to add to it, but I think it would just be a case of them choosing when they think the right time to pull the trigger on it is. For me, what I was thinking of as like my kind of what else will happen at the J Cup. We know that we have an additional name that's been announced. He's kind of announced himself, right? One like Manders.
Oh yes.
So he's not going to be in the J Cup because he's not a cruiserweight. So I'm expecting him to wrestle either Luke Jacobs or RKJ. I think it'll be one of those two. So there's one of I'm expecting an 8-match card. I'm expecting the first half to be the 4 singles matches for the J Cup. The main event will be the 4-way elimination for the J Cup, meaning you've got 3 matches after the interval. So I'm expecting either one like Manders versus Luke Jacobs or RKJ to be one of them. I'd expect Cutthroat Collective to be involved somewhere, and for us to see a variation of those women against a group of others or in a tag match. And then one more match, which if the women's is a singles, I'd expect Sunshine Machine to be involved in a tag match. And if the Cutthroat Collective is a tag match or a multi-man match, then to get one more singles match on the card. But yeah, I'm expecting those 8 matches. I'm expecting one like Manders to be in a high-profile losing effort against RKJ or Luke Jacobs. I don't think we'll get any other sort of big surprise names, but I think we'll just get some good, solid Rev Pro matches in terms of the rest of it. If you think to the J Cup last year, you had Kanji and Alex Windsor, you had Gabe Kidd and Michael Oku, and you had RKJ versus Luke Jacobs as your 3 other matches. That's pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
Obviously, last year they didn't have a Global Wars, and from the J Cup, the next big event was Uprising, so they can spread some of those big matches out this year. We've got the Trios tournament, which I'm expecting. So I think there'll be 8 teams at the Trios tournament, because when they did 16 teams in the past, it was over 3 days.
Yeah.
So I can't see them doing 16 teams over 2 days. I think it would just be carnage. So I'm expecting 8 teams at the Trios tournament, which means if you were to do 4 on Saturday and then 2 semi-finals and a final on Sunday, there's still plenty of other matches on those 2 cards.
Absolutely, yeah.
Where you could do some big matches like this and get get some title matches in for other people, or get some big kind of exhibition singles, big name one-on-ones. So I think we're probably going to get a slightly less stacked card than last year in terms of the other matches. But I think the J Cup this year is more stacked than it was last year in terms of the talent they've brought in for that. And I think that's enough.
Yeah, I think that looks good. You just put another seed in my head there. And when you mentioned about the Cutthroat Collective, and you were like, if it could be a tag match or something. So we've obviously got the hangover from Millie McKenzie's decision. And we know that Charlie Evans is going to be back in the country within the next month or so. What if this is a way of getting her into Rev Pro?
Yeah,
that could be
that could either be Millie McKenzie teaming with Kanji to set up the Medusa complex at Global Wars, if the dates align that way, or if Charlie's in the country for the J Cup, do the Medusa complex at the J Cup. Yeah. You've got the trios tournament as well. So effectively, September, October, November has a significant event at each one where they're going to want to, push ticket sales. So Medusa complex at any one of those would be pretty impressive draw.
Absolutely. So puts up quite nicely there to Global Wars itself, actually. Spike, I've asked you guys to have a think about a match that you guys could think could be announced for someone who's already announced for the card. So where's your mind going with this one?
To be honest, I've forgotten who's announced for the card already. You can remind me, and then I will.
We've got Titan, Mascara Dorada, and Mina Shirakawa, as well as obviously Jacobs versus Ishii.
The thing is with Global Wars, it's kind of a no man's land for me because there's so many ways you can go with everything. I have no idea who you'd put people against.
You could literally pick two people here, couldn't you, and put them together, and it's completely
and it would sound fine. Yeah, it would sound completely fine. You could say fucking Mystico versus Davy Jones, and you wouldn't question it, that sort of thing. But this is so it's completely like I couldn't tell you a match I want to see because I want to see all of them. I want to see every iteration that Andy could put together. So everything. Just give me a 50 match card and I'll be happy.
Yeah. Dave and I will be getting out of there at 2 a.m. at that rate, won't we?
We'll be bloody happy.
Value for Rev Pro, value for money. What about you, Dave? Like we said, to be fair, when I asked that question, there was in my mind there was more announced talent. I think that's because we have such a good time talk about this match or this match. But for those few that have been announced, Dave, where's your mind leading?
So, like with Titan and Mascara Dorado, they could be competitors to Facebook Caven for the Cruiserweight title. So you could put Caven in defending his title against one of those two. They are big deals in CMLL. So politically, that might be tricky because they're probably not going to be too happy about those two both going in and losing. The one that I think I kind of want to see it and I kind of don't. Mina Shirakawa versus Kanji. On the one hand, I really want to see it because I feel like it would be another great match for Kanji to be able to add to this stellar 2024 that she's had, working Fantastica Mania with Stephanie Vacour, working the Copper Box, having high profile matches with just about everybody in Rev Pro. In fact, if you look at the 12 months from this time last year to now, she's had title matches with Alex Windsor. She's had 2 out of 3 falls with Sapphire Reed. She's worked Millie McKenzie. She's done the Copper Box. She's done York Hall. She's done everything. This would be another great thing to add to it. The only thing I don't like about it is I think Mina Shirakawa, I really want her to have one title defense at least before she passes the belt on. So, and this would work for it, but it might be one of those where people are like, we wanted Kanji to be the next champion and she's not won it. but I still see a way for Kanji to come back round again. Because we've talked about this before. I think from Mina Shirakawa, it has to go to somebody on the Cutthroat Collective. From the Cutthroat Collective, then it comes to Kanji or Rio. And in that case, you're talking about, the Cutthroat Collective are probably going to need to hold it for some time. So if Mina held it until Uprising by defending it at Global Wars and then losing it at Uprising, and we don't see her in between, that's plausible. That's December. If then the Cutthroat Collective, they can hold it until the 13th anniversary show next year. An 8-month title run, and then Kanji or Rio win it then. No one's going to be looking back at her losing this match in October of this year. So I think that's like a very plausible one. I think Mina will be the... I think we're more likely to see her wrestle a Rev Pro British wrestling talent than her in an international dream match. Unless it is some kind of multi-woman match, potentially. What was that?
I heard that.
They're literally having a scrap over it.
They want
Which
Mina.
one of you just made that noise? Big one's picking on the little one. Mash is picking on pile. I really hope, what I do hope is that Caven, I know he's not announced yet, but Caven gets a title match against somebody of note and beats them. One that I really like the idea of is Will Caven versus Yoshinobu Kanemaru. Kanemaru, if you're not too familiar with him, he's just this old man. He's the heel master of New Japan. And I would really love to see Caven out-heel the heel master. And I'd love it to be one of those matches where it's heel versus heel, but it actually works. Because Kanemaru's got this really nice... He's got this lovable babyface side that he can lean into, especially for a one-off event. But for Caven to out-cheat him would be quite entertaining. Kanemaru brings a whiskey bottle to the ring, and when the referee's not looking, he takes a swig of the whiskey and spits it in the other opponent's face. And I'd love to see Caven do that back to him.
Nice.
So that's one I would love to see. And from the confirmed ones, Shirakawa versus Kanji, I think for me.
Nice. I'm of the same opinion that I think this could be a Shirakawa defense because I say it's very un-Rev Pro almost to have the champion lose, but we've seen it happen, haven't we? Where the champion has won and then lost the title straight away. So we've seen that happen recently. So am I overthinking this and going, would Andy do that again so quickly with another title? So I think Shirakawa defends. I haven't decided which side of the fence that Shirakawa lands on in terms of, is she the international talent or is she the Rev Pro representing talent here? So I've come up with an idea for both. For what it's worth, I don't think either will happen, but it's one of these kind of cards that you can just have something a bit different, and it's almost like when you're booking like a Forbidden Door style card, you don't necessarily need it to be like someone who's built up as the next contender to be ready, right? It's one of those ones where you could just allow the sandbox to play a bit more. So if we're going an international talent, I just want Mina versus Maki Ito. I just think it'd be fun. I think it'll be incredible. I think Maki Ito just has a charisma, a really great just way of drawing people in, and one of my favorite theme songs in the entirety of wrestling. I will happily admit that I think Maki Ito's theme song is my third most listened to song on Spotify ever. I've listened to it that much. And yeah, I've got the stats to prove it, like third most listened to ever. So I just
I'm
really
100% gonna clip that exact quote and get that up on socials.
You go for
you
it,
admitting that Maki Ito's theme tune is your third most played Spotify song ever.
You crack on, mate. It's a fucking banger of a song. Absolutely incredible. Love it. Enjoy it unironically.
Love that.
So,
mate, I'll tell you what, Maki Ito versus Mina Shirakawa, I would love that so much. That is probably the match they could book that I would be most excited for.
Yeah, I think that would be the one I'd be most excited for. I just love like when someone just hits Meki and she just turns out and cries. Like that is incredible. Like I love it. So yeah, I would love that. And look, and again, this is one that I'm saying is probably not going to happen for a variety of reasons. And I've said this person a few times on a few different shows about a few different things. But if you were at a stage where you were going to reintroduce Zoe Lucas back into Rev Pro, because I do think it's going to happen at some point, and I do think if that's what she wants to do, of course, what a way to do it, because obviously there's the Mariah connection there as well. It feels like a match that if you know Zoe and what her career's been about, that this match just makes sense, right? And I think it would just be a really nice reintroduction. And that's all I'll say. And I think I'm probably going to stop banging the drum now of saying Zoe Lucas all the time, because obviously much more real life things. I just wanted to give a nice thing where it just seemed to line up and would make sense if the opportunity arose on it.
I think this is one of those, like, if she wants to get back in the ring, this would be probably one of the most ideal ways for her to do it.
Mm-hmm.
From, you know, someone with a Stardom history wrestling a Stardom wrestler, but in a Rev Pro ring where they have this shared history of both being Mariah May's like best mate.
Yeah.
It would be perfect. Of course, it completely depends on what she wants and where
Exactly.
she is in terms of what she wants from her career, if she has a career in the ring.
Exactly.
But I would love to see it.
Yeah, absolutely same. So we're now going to talk about the people that haven't been announced. So Dave, you obviously alluded to Will Caven. Are there any other matches that you're thinking of that between people that haven't been announced, you go, this could happen, and you better not steal my one.
At Royal Quest 3 last year, I felt a real tease of Michael Oku versus TJP. There was some real moments in their 6-man match with Tanahashi and Eddie Kingston against United Empire, where it really felt like there was chemistry there, but also, you know, like when a match is set up to show you that you want to see something, and then they show it to you like a month later. It felt like that, and I thought we would get Oku versus TJP, but we never did. Obviously, that was on Royal Quest, so maybe it's going to be on Royal Quest this year. Maybe I was seeing stuff that wasn't even there. Maybe it's just because I love TJP and I would love to watch a TJP singles match in Rev Pro, and I know that Michael Oku has a bloody great match with literally anybody. So I would, if that match was announced, I think I would kind of probably wet myself, because that would be like one of my kind of dream matches. I think TJP is one of the most underrated wrestlers in the whole entire world. I think he's one of the most talented wrestlers of his generation. I think he is capable of so many different styles of wrestling, but also excelling at so many different styles of wrestling. I liked him when I used to watch him in WWE. I loved him when I watched him in Impact. Like, his matches with people like Josh Alexander were just incredible. And then I properly fell in love with him as a character as well as a wrestler, where with Catch 22 in New Japan with Francesco Akira. So I would absolutely love to see that. I think, if obviously it's a long shot, but if we could get any TJP singles match, I think it would be cracking.
Nice. Yeah, I think that would be good. Much like you, I mean, I don't know a lot of TJP, if I'm honest. Like a lot of people, I probably found him through the Cruiserweight Classic. Really, really liked him, and that was my pick of who I wanted to win that. He just had this really magnetic energy to him, and I think I might have seen him once at a WWE live show, I think. But I've not seen a huge amount of him since post WWE. So you always come up with some good recommendations, so I'd be more than happy to watch him. It'd be nice to get someone a bit different as well, who isn't on the normal sort of shows, like not one of these imports that's always coming into the country. It'd be like someone very different. For me, the match that hasn't been announced for, or no one's been announced for that I want. The agenda is here. It's Zack Sabre Jr. versus Isaiah. I just want that match. I think that would be amazing. What do you need to say? Zack Sabre Jr. is one of the best wrestlers in the world, who I have to say, talk about the same Cruiserweight Classic. Me and the wife, we just didn't get him at that point. We didn't like him at all. We couldn't stand him. Don't know what it was. He just really turned us off of him when we watched him. I watched him once against Okada. I think it was a title match where people thought he might beat Okada. That's really narrowing it down, I know. And I was like, yeah, I kind of see a little bit. And then it was really recently, actually, it was anniversary show last year that we were like, I get it now. I really get the whole thing with him. And now I just want to see every Zack Sabre Jr. match that I can. Like, I've had a picture taken with the guy and everything. Like, just great wrestler. Him and Isaiah would just put some magic out there.
I think that's a match which, like, not all matches have 5 stars in them. You know, like, say what you will about like Meltzer ratings, but you can't just put any 2 wrestlers together and get a 5-star match. Even if 2 wrestlers have the best possible match that they can put on, it won't be enough to get to that limit. But Zack Sabre Jr. versus Isaiah, in terms of what matches could Rev Pro put on that could get a 5-star, like that, and obviously the fact that we've got Ishii versus Jacobs, which has already got 4 3/4 stars, when everybody felt like it should have been 5 last year. And, you know, for loads of people, they'll be like, why does that matter? Who cares? Like, literally, that shouldn't enter anybody's thought. And I'm not saying that it should enter their thought when it comes to booking matches. They shouldn't be thinking what's going to get us critical acclaim. But it is a match which has so much potential that it could be a genuinely critically acclaimed classic. That
I think there's a point there, as like you said, yeah, they shouldn't go in with that idea, but people have their thoughts on like the Meltzer stuff, right? And the way I look at it is he's just like a well-known critic in his field, right? They exist. There's lots of different film critics people go, this is my guy for that, right? The Meltzer ratings mean everything or nothing, right? They mean everything if you go, for the majority of his output, I agree with what he says. Like, I agree with how he's got his rationale behind it. And I think for me, he's really damaged our reputation by going above 5 stars. That's just personal opinion. I think if you're going to have that scale, you either need to go, it's 10 stars now, and reevaluate everything based on that scale. Go, no, everything now goes to this, or you just keep it as it is and go 5-star match. I really don't think there's a need to differentiate between this 5-star match and this 5-star match are now 5.5. Like, that just feels stupid. But like, I follow it because the guy more often than not gets what I think is right. Like, the taste wise, I go, okay, I agree with him on these really great matches. I agree with him on these not so great matches. He's a barometer of what I think I'm going to like. The same when we go searching out movie ratings. We probably have those people, or bands or stuff like that. We probably have those people we trust more because we know what they're about, the way they look at things. So I think it's important to have some of those. And while I don't want RevPro chasing it necessarily, RevPro are a company that can really benefit from that, right? We're in an era now where you've got the ability to just flick RevPro on demand on, right? There's not the Dave Meltzer doesn't have to come to an arena anymore to go and watch a match live, and that's his only way of seeing it. He's got the ability to stick it on, go and watch that match. And the boom that could have for RevPro if this match gets announced as 5 stars. If Zazea and Zack Sabre Jr. have an amazing match, people go, but I know Zack Sabre Jr., but who's this other guy? Like, there's so much that can happen there off the back of it that I think it's important to not necessarily go chasing it, but put yourself in the position for success so that if this does come your way, it only further enhances that reputation. Because I don't know if there is a British indie that's had a Meltzer 5. I mean, I don't count, this could sound bad, I don't count Shingo versus Ospreay, which I think did get the 5, didn't it, last year? Right. I think that's a cheat code match. And if I'm honest, I don't think it was a 5-star match. I think the best match of the night for me was Jacobs and Ishii that night. And again, semantics of kind of like, even if you agree with a reviewer and it's skews to your taste, you're not always going to see eye to eye. That's the beauty of art, right? You're assessing art at the end of the day. But if you have like Zack Sabre Jr. plus one of your regular guys going out there getting a 5-star match, that does such good for you outside of that normal all-in weekend style show. So yeah, I think that would have a possibility to be a great match.
I don't think any like British independent wrestling companies ever had a 5-star match. I don't think any European wrestling companies ever had a 5-star match. And I'm not entirely sure if there are many 5-star matches in any American independent wrestling companies. PWG's like the exception. They've had 5-star matches and count as an independent wrestling company. I don't think like maybe I'm completely wrong. If I'm completely wrong, educate me, tell me about it, like comment. I want to know more, but I don't think like, when I think of like American indie companies and I think of GCW and I think of Defy and sort of like those names, I don't think they've ever had a 5-star match. And I know that like Rev Pro have the New Japan link, so that's probably why Meltzer started watching some Rev Pro matches, and he doesn't watch everything. So you could turn around and be like, well, of course Rev Pro are going to have some star matches because he watches some Rev Pro, yet he's never watched a Progress show. But at the end of the day, his record books have Rev Pro in them, and that's it's optics, isn't it? When you look at the top rated matches of all time, like if you looked at the highest rated matches of all time, Rev Pro is right near the top because they have a 6-star match.
Yep.
WWE's never had a 6-star match. No. Well, that's mad to think, isn't it?
Yeah, that's crazy. And that's like you said, it's the optics of it. It's the what this can do, and it's the setting yourself up for that success. Yes, he might never watch it, but he could watch it. Like there could be a bit of buzz about it, and he could go, well, I have the ability to log into this platform and go and watch it. The same way that he would have the same to do with Progress. And it almost creates a level playing field in the ability to watch it. Still doesn't mean that you're going to get in front of the guy. But if you do get in front of the guy, the ability to actually have him watch it is there. So, yeah, be interesting. Spike, we're going to finish with you, my friend. What do you think is the match that could be announced between people that haven't yet been announced on this card?
I think we're going to get a JJ match. I would like to see JJ versus Callum Newman. Like I said last week, Andy very heavily mentioned Callum Newman during commentary. So I think we are getting it. And you could spin that off into a tag league. You could do anything you want with that. So I think it'd be a great match. I also would think there's going to be a big tag team title match. I don't know who against. There's so many options.
Yeah, it's quite difficult because New Japan don't have many tag teams. Like I know that's like a weird thing to say because they have stables and like they're a big company, but they don't have many like just out and out tag teams. They just have lots of variations of the stables.
Yeah. They don't have many that can move either.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see. Obviously, it could be like a CMLL tag team, but it would be interesting to see. I really hope Sunshine Machine are on it because I know when I interviewed TK last year, he talked about, and he was very much, talking about the decline of Sunshine Machine in Rev Pro, and he was very much talking in character. But he said that the fact that they'd been overlooked for the Copper Box was a kick in the teeth. The fact that they'd been overlooked for Royal Quest was another kick in the teeth. So I feel like it would be really good for them to get a big Global Wars match.
They have to.
And then it's just a case of like, I was kind of thinking, I was writing a list for, which by the time this comes out would have already come out. But I was thinking of some teams that you could put together. You could do, if it was LIJ, you could do like Bushi and Titan, which would be an interesting combination that Sunshine Machine could definitely win. You could do House of Torture, and you could have like proper face Sunshine Machine versus like Vile, Heels, House of Torture. You could do Ren Narita and Yujiro Takahashi. I don't think we'll get a TMDK team because you bloody pain in the arse. Literally, he's been bouncing around on the table, but like out of shot. And I was like, all you need to do is tread on that, and this is all going to fall down. Terrible. I don't think you could do a TMDK team involving, rather than Mikey Nichols and Sharon Hayes, because they're wrestling for, they're defending their tag titles at Royal Quest the next day. So you're not going to have them lose to Sunshine Machine at Global Wars. But you could do like Kosi Fujita and Robbie Eagles. You could do Robbie Eagles or Fujita and whoever the newest member of TMDK is that's being teased. You could do it with like Adu Tito if he's over. So there's definitely combinations. The only the classic New Japan tag team is Bishamon, which is Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi, but I can't see them being allowed politically to lose to Sunshine Machine at Global Wars when Goto's involved in quite a high profile. He had a big G1. He's got a high profile match with Gabe Kidd coming up. Yoshihashi's got a big match with David Finlay coming up, so they're quite highly featured at the moment. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think a Sunshine Machine match is definitely a must. And for JJ, I think the key for me, and we said it last week, is JJ just needs to beat whoever he's wrestling. Mm-hmm. And if it is Callum Newman, like that could be like a really good one, because he beat Callum Newman in the 229 in January. And it would now, he could do it on a big stage as well. And it would be quite cool, because then you've got this wrinkle of Callum Newman's career is outshining JJ Gow's at the moment, but JJ Gow's repeatedly beating him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It feels like those two are kind of always going to be talked about together because of the fact that they were a tag team together and they came up together. So it would be, I think it's always good when you have these little storyline statistics and facts which can just be pulled out whenever you need them.
Yeah, I like Spike's suggestion, and then it's spin off into a tag league. I really like that. Callum, he's a good lad, and just really great in the ring. And it almost feels, I know it sounds really silly to say about a British talent, but it would feel fresh having him in as well. Like, because he's obviously gone on to Japan, he's in out there, and yeah, he's coming for a couple of matches, but just a fresh match would feel nice. And I'm running the tag league. Sunshine Machine, well, I can't have it all, can I? I suppose they have to be on the card, and they're on the card. But I agree with the look. You want to kick their reign off properly with a bang, right? Like, give them, this is the first big, well, probably, unless you have someone at J Cup, like this is a big event where charging 110 quid for front row tickets at this show, right? So you're going to want a big match. I'm just going to throw a wrinkle out there. It's not going to happen, but hey, let's speculate. Why does the tag team even need to be signed by any of these companies? Motor City Machine Guns, get them over. Have that versus Sunshine Machine.
The last one I read was that they were expected in WWE any day now.
Wow,
but then last week it was they were expected in AEW any day now. So
and then I've been reading
who knows where they're going to prop up.
Apparently, they're just not expected anywhere. At one point, Sean Rossap. Every time I watch one of his shows, it's constantly like, "Do not ask me. Like, just do not spend your money asking me about Motor City Machine Guns. I know nothing." Which I think is incredible in this day and age that no one knows anything.
Fair play to them keeping it so close to their chests, because it makes it more fun.
Yeah, because they're supposed to have been announced for a company like 6 or 7 months ago, and they're supposed to be signed on the dotted line, and they still haven't. And they're just the age that they're at now, where look, they're on the tail end of their career, and look, the internet is being incredibly non-weird about this. Of course they are, and being like, why do they have to go to NXT? Like, they should be like. Can you really blame the guys if they choose to go to somewhere like NXT? I don't agree with a lot of the NXT hirings. I don't agree with having people like Julia and Steph Faker and putting them on fucking NXT, right? I just think that's stupid. But not my toy pen. I don't get to do what I want with them. But someone
Play
like
devil's advocate.
sorry,
Play devil's advocate. If it was black and gold NXT, you'd want Julia and Black Hair in there.
Yeah.
you know,
But
I wouldn't.
devil's advocate.
I wouldn't be against it from a style of wrestling, but I just don't. I suppose I guess what I'm saying is like the style of main like roster women's wrestling in America is so different. And yeah, you're probably right. Back then, I'd say yeah, bringing them over here. I don't give a fuck about WWE main roster.
This is it. That's what I'm saying.
So yeah, I totally agree with you on that point. But I think something like Motor City Machine Guns going there makes a lot of sense for everyone, especially them. They probably don't want to be traveling everywhere week after week at this age. Like they can go in there, get a nice role, putting over new talents, being champions of that brand, and eventually go into a nice trainer role. Or they could do what they've been doing and going, "Hey, you think we're off to NXT? No, we're just going to appear nowhere apart from random indies for the next 6 months." Fair play to them. Hope whatever they do, they get a lot of money out of doing so.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Like I was gutted that I didn't get to see Alex Shelley last year because I went to the one of the Impact tapings and he got hurt on the first night. So the Motor City Machine Guns match had to be changed and he was pulled from it. And he was like one of my main reasons to want to go. Like Alex Shelley's one of those guys where it's like the very first time I ever watched him wrestle was just like, this dude is incredible. Like he's absolutely my kind of wrestler. Him versus TJP, there's an old Impact match which is like worth digging out.
Nice, yeah. I think Alex Shelley's great. Fun fact: one of the things that I learned from Alex Shelley was a band that I liked, a band called Rock Kills Kid, and I found it by going onto Alex Shelley's MySpace page back in the day. And yeah.
You love a wrestler's theme tune on Spotify. Check out Robbie Eagles' theme tune and TJP's theme tune. They are legitimate bangers.
I'll give them a look. I'm just on my other screen while we're talking. I actually, because I'm not sure if I've ever seen Alex Shelley, so I'm just going to my my spreadsheet.
Your own personal database.
Oh, I have seen Alex Shelley wrestle before, just the once. It seems it was a TNA Impact taping at Wembley Arena, versus in a triple threat match with Austin Aries and Doug Williams.
Oh, that's some names for you.
Yeah, I know. I must have seen Sabin before as well. Oh no, apparently not. I was convinced I saw Sabin at one point in Doncaster, but Sabin does not appear on my list. So that is. Let's just check the other one. Yeah, this. If I could show you this spreadsheet. I know I have. Who do I see? Chris Sabin teaming with Jerry Lynn against Jody Fleisch and Johnny Storm, 2005.
Wow!
Right.
That is literally like. That sounds like a proper 2005 Brit show. Jody Fleisch and Johnny Storm.
Yeah. So this was one PW where when they were at this point they were just getting everything TNA links. So like I've seen Generation Next with Austin Aries and Roderick Strong. I've seen them as a team. I've seen the Job Squad, Al Snow and Blue Meanie. Southern Comfort, which was Chris Hamrick and Tracy Smothers. But this might be the most Brit Rest 2006 match I've ever seen. AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels versus Colt Cabana and Darren Burridge. So Darren Burridge, trainer of Will Ospreay. They were known as the Street Hooligan Adventure Gang, or for short, Team Shag.
Team Shag.
Yeah, exactly. That was prime 2006 Brit Rest there. Oh dear. And yeah, I actually got to see Morishima live as well, which is just another really random one, which is probably someone that you don't ever think you'll see, but then you see people go, oh yeah, he's gone on to do things, hasn't he? So, gents, that's been a good show, I think, as we wind down. Does anyone have any last bits they want to get off their chest or speak about before we wrap up?
Well, we've had an imposter. I don't know whether you've spotted her appear out the corner of my my screen. you want to tell us all about your near-death experience?
A frog just tried to
Come here. Come here.
A frog
Come,
just
no,
tried
no,
to
come around here. Come around here.
No, I'm not
Get
very
on
Come on,
screen.
you don't have to be on screen now. You've interrupted us. Come here.
I'm
I'm
traumatised.
just
I've got a
going to say,
traumatized wife who's claiming that a frog just tried to kill her.
It did. It did. It just jumped out at me from the shadows.
Jumped out at you from the shadows.
It
Is
did.
it-
like
is it-
Teenage
Calm
Mutant
down.
Ninja Frog.
It was outside the house waiting. I went out there to the car. It leapt for me. And I almost died.
Hitman Frog.
Millions and millions of podcast viewers who know this.
Well, your listeners should be aware they are deadly.
Deadly frogs.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
What a way to bookend our podcast from us ripping the piss out of George's hat at the start to Emily the Mark's near-death experience with a killer frog.
Oh dear, oh dear. I think I've actually found a picture of the culprit as well. Let me just bring that into the chat. I've never done this live before. This is going to be really fun for the viewers and listeners. A bit of dead air while I save a picture. Where did it save to? There we go. Right. You know what? This is very anticlimactic now for what was supposed to be a little funny bit, but I feel like I need to stick with it now because I've tried to work out how to do it, and I've
You're
never done
committed,
it.
George. You're committed.
I'm committed to the bit, but can you? I don't know if you boys. Well, you boys won't be able to see this, so I've realised now that I'm doing everything to pop myself, and you guys won't see until after the show. But I will WhatsApp the picture to you both. And as it stands, it's currently covering Spike, but it is it's a frog dressed as a hitman in a suit with a Tommy gun and a briefcase. So I'm sure that was the culprit.
There we go. Was that the culprit? Em?
Well, I can't say for certain because I was too busy running for my life.
Fair play.
Oh, and on that note, we've just ripped the piss out of Dave's wife. It's been a pleasure, gentlemen. Catch you next time.
Cheers, Jets.